Several significant Viking era discoveries have been made in Täby in Sweden, where remnants of a settlement were found containing not only buildings but also over 1,000 artifacts. The report has recently been published and it offers a very interesting glimpse into Viking daily life. The excavations at Vikby, which would have been the late medieval name of the estate, uncovered an extensive and long lived settlement used from the late Iron Age, so about 550 AD through the early Middle Ages till the 15th century. Archaeologists identified at least 34 buildings, including longhouses, pit houses, and other structures organized into phases indicating evolving household units and farmstead layouts over several centuries. Let's have a quick look at a couple of examples. The first building is a well preserved medieval timber building dating back to the 30th century with a stone foundation and no hearth, interpreted as a farm outbuilding or byre. Finds included a bracteate coin, a sewing needle, and a sparse domestic refuse, suggesting a non residential function. Building number two is quite interesting. It's a Viking Age pit house acting as a blacksmith workshop. Analysis of floor sediments and slag revealed intensive but possibly short term iron smithing, including production of nails, small tools, and furnace nozzle. Ceramic shards indicated mixed local and imported ceramic ware. The third building is a hybrid timber house dating back to about 700-800, likely combining residential and specialized workspaces. We have a large central hearth sealed with four Viking Age arrowheads, interpreted as part of a ritual closure when the house was abandoned. The structure might have been used by sort of a mixed household of warriors and smiths, linking work and defense. The fourth building is a three-aisled longhouse dating back to between 550 and 700 AD, likely the oldest building on site. It had a structured terracing and hints of symbolic or practical stone use in construction. It seems to have an association with early ceramics and possible remains of image stones, suggesting sort of like a cultural significance, or ideological one. And the fifth example, that is an early pit house dating back to the 900s. It was found with Phenobaltic ceramics, possibly used in rituals or burial practices. At any rate, it parallels those found in nearby graves, and it possibly had multiple functions, domestic and cultic. One of the vessel shards from the building matches materials from funerary contexts, suggesting a shared symbolic function. So these are among the types of houses we find on the settlement. Like I said, both domestic and ritualistic. But these aren't the only types. We also have smaller one room or narrow longhouses, often with post hole alignments, central hearths, and evidence of seasonal reuse. A number had reused post holes and overlapping construction phases, which implies both a dynamic and a stable long term use of the settlement landscape, with buildings constantly being replaced, rebuilt, or realigned over generations. There's also evidence for lots of activity on site. We have courtyards, threshing areas, and lots of workspaces. Several were covered in thin and compact activity layers rich in seeds, in charcoal, in pottery fragments, tools as well, indicating that daily work such as creating tools and cooking and doing textile work was conducted outside seasonally or regularly. The grave finds seem to reflect a transitional funerary landscape, mixing older cremation practices with Christian style inhumations. Five graves were investigated in total, three inhumation graves, coffin graves in Christian style, and also two cremation graves. It would be the older kind. There's also one isolated cremation deposit, that means burnt human remains reused or ritually deposited. The coffin graves included occasional grave goods, for example, ceramics, but were generally very, very modest. One cremation included a Phenobaltic ceramic vessel with geometric decoration, and this would show influence from places like Estonia and the Eastern Baltic. Then we have another cremation that might have been ritually redeposited in a later building context in building number 23, indicating ongoing interaction with ancestral remains. to soil acidity and post-depositional conditions. Best preserved elements were the teeth. It's usually the case. They're very durable elements. And in this case, over 47% of the remains consisted of loose teeth. Cremated bones were surprisingly better preserved than inhumed remains, and about 16% of the bone material from the site was actually burnt, and this is quite a significant percent. Due to high fragmentation, age and sex determination were very limited, especially in cremation cases. One adult male individual was identified through osteology and DNA analysis, and he doesn't have any sign of acute trauma, no pathology at all, but this could also be due to preservation bias. Isotope analysis was also made, and graves 45, 46, and 47 indicate marine fish consumption, especially 47 and 46. Some of the other values also show variation typical of mixed diets. The strontium values are consistent with local and regional origins, not indicating long distance migration in these cases, and it's kind of logical because it is still quite a rural settlement we're talking about. So only one of the samples yielded recoverable ancient DNA. The grave containing it is very interesting because it also contains Phenobaltic pottery, which is particularly notable. It has geometric decorations such as incised crosses, which are not really common in Swedish contexts, and it would suggest, if not a foreign identity, at least a foreign influence. We also have evidence for the reuse of cremated remains in structural contexts, and such practices would suggest ancestor veneration or the ritual manipulation of older burials. So, overall, we have a picture of a culturally entangled community. The evidence points to, first of all, a shift from pre Christian to Christian burial rites. Then we have individuals with local origin, but they did have some sort of external cultural contact. And we also have this potential ritual handling of ancestral remains. And of course, the last element would be the diet, which also speaks a lot for the daily life of people. So the mixed agrarian and marine diet. Vikby also presented substantial evidence of domestic scale metallurgy with advanced smithing techniques and ritual overtones as well. Over 275 grams of iron slag, metal fragments, and ceramics associated with smithing were recovered from building number 2 and its surroundings. Some iron items were high quality forged tools, including laminated knives, and even a spearhead made of phosphoric steel, showing knowledge of layered forging and heat treatment. We have quite a lot of amulet rings having been discovered both in the settlement and in burial contexts, and they might have been status objects, but also might have had some kind of symbolic function, apotropaic objects paralleling similar finds in the Viking Age. So the kind of objects that you would use in order to convince the supernatural forces to be a little kinder to you. One of the most extraordinary finds was a ceramic vessel containing a silver hoard buried in the 11th century. But this is not the only reason why this object is interesting. The vessel contained not only coins and silver fragments, but also preserved pollen from medicinal plants, including yarrow and other herbs. The discovery suggests not only economic value, but also some sorts of ritual meaning, possibly healing or a protective deposit, or perhaps a ritualized object linked to the sacral use of landscape. The environmental data is also exceptional. Of 134 samples, over 75 contained plant remains. Findings show 500 years of continuous cultivation of cereals such as emmer wheat, barley, rye, and oats, alongside weeds and meadow plants, suggesting both crop rotation and grazing. Some contexts revealed charred bread remains and boiled cereal porridge, indicating domestic food preparation, again with a potential ritual use as well. One of the silver hoard contexts preserved pollen from herbs used in folk medicine, supporting the idea of intertwined, practical, and cultic use. Zooarchaeology also has some interesting findings. It reveals a strong focus on cattle, but also on sheep, goats, and some horses and pigs. There are also some unusual ritual deposits, including cattle skulls and jaws in ritual contexts, perhaps as foundation offerings. So when you build a house. Fish remains and bird bones, such as ducks and pigeons, are also to be found, suggesting coastal foraging and a diversified diet. There's also bone evidence pointing to slaughter patterns consistent with seasonal feasting and sacrificial practices. The ceramic assemblage shows strong links to Gamla Uppsala, the regional political and religious center. We have imports from Finland, the so called Finno Baltic ware, as well as some evidence from Belgium. The rare Ardennes pottery was also identified, pointing to trade networks reaching across the Baltic and even into Western Europe. So, yeah, it's a local settlement. That doesn't mean they do not have connections to the rest of the world. The high skill level of the Finnish type pottery and its sort of upper class context suggests either the presence of individuals of Finnish origin in the area or long distance exchange connections. And last but not least, across the settlement, at least 15 features were interpreted as ritual structures or deposits. These included depositional pits, foundation offerings, amulet rings, and closure rituals, such as the burial of the arrowheads I mentioned earlier. The absence of horse deposits in most ritual contexts is quite unusual for Viking Age sites, but then we have a dominance of cattle remains, suggesting sort of like a local ritual variant or perhaps also an ideological preference. In conclusion, the amount of objects and artifacts that have been discovered here, and there is a report of 700 pages documenting everything in the detail, paints a picture of a rural elite settlement somehow that was deeply embedded in practices related to extending the building networks, in trade, some of which also long distance, as well as a lot of ritual practices and agrarian continuity. We have a blend of local and imported materials. We have ritual architecture, specialized crafts, and cross cultural burial contexts, giving us a little bit of insight into Viking and medieval social transformation in eastern Sweden. And not only here, it allows us to see the commoners, mostly their daily life and what activities they engaged in. So we might not have sort of like spectacular artifacts, very shiny treasures, but at any rate, we do have a lot of material providing us with sort of a general picture regarding what life would have been for villagers in eastern Sweden. That was it for today. This was Irina. Thank you so much for watching. And please do continue with my video about the recently ransacked burial mound, also from Sweden, where you can find a lot more information about ritual practices and sacred landscapes. Also, subscribe if you haven't done so so far and help the channel grow. Follow me for much more on the history and archaeology of Northern Europe. Till next time, take care.